are going to be missing one though. You'll notice that Luna is currently not here. She'll be joining us momentarily. But I mean, we got the gents in here. We got the gents in here. Plus, there was a little bit of a mirror match happening tonight. So I'm going to kick off the conversation right now. I want to know. This season we had the one deck rule, as we just was talking about there. We thought it would be a one deck rule. You're not allowed to play a deck with the same 28 cards, etc., thinking that no one would try and push that limit. Well, what did we know? Nikachu, going to you. How many more have you got in the tank? If you manage to make it into that top 8, make it into that top 4, are we going to see you playing Fish for another 2 weeks, or are you out of it now? Have you got none left in the tank?
No, 100%. I'm locked in for another 2 clean deck lists for the next 2 rounds. If I can make it there, you will see 2 more Merfolk decks. Yeah, I was thinking, wow, 28 cards. Wow, you're really pushing me to go play like goblins, and I'll try to play like Vile Goblins and Blood Moon and Goblin King. I would have done it, but then I realized, maybe this is actually possible after all. After like moving the numbers around, it's like, yeah, I can map out like 5 different decks for this entire series.
I love it, but I'm going to go to the other 2 here, where basically you're kind of at a disadvantage at the minute because you lost a pod and then you won a pod. You've now got to play in this 3rd pod before the top 8. This eliminates another deck of your choice that you potentially could use in that top 8. How is that affecting coming into this week? Is this like I'm bringing up my A game deck this week, or am I bringing? I'm going to try and save that and hope I can squeak through into the top 8. Start with you, BBD. BBD. Where you're bringing Rhinos this week, right?
Yeah, I'm living one deck at a time. I'm living deck to deck, I guess you could say. Yeah, like I had Gorios in the tank. I played that last time. Now I was like, okay, I don't have a deck anymore. I was like, I'm gonna try Rhinos, see if I still like it, and I still did. So I was like, okay, I can bring Rhinos, but if I do end up winning or moving on this week, then I'm gonna have to be scrambling for another deck again. So I don't exactly have anything planned out in terms of the future. I'm just, if I get there, I'll figure it out as I go, I guess.
And just to quickly before I move to Seth, how happy are you that you've got those 4 figures in your sideboard? As I move along to Seth, which Seth and Luna, you basically brought the same 75, the new Affinity deck that is kind of sweeping the internet. This has got some of the new cards from Outlaw the Fung Junction in it. Why are you bringing that deck this week? Is it as powerful as everybody's making out? Is it just a flash in the pan? Because I'm kind of invested. Please tell me it's really good, and these cards in front of me are going to be good at the weekend when I start playing Magic.
So I didn't take the deck seriously at first, but then I was playing a league on Moto, and my opponent was playing Simulacrum Synthesizer, and they had like 3 10/10s on turn 3, and I was like, wow, this card is actually like kind of good. I'm gonna have to give this a try. So I think Simulacrum Synthesizer in the finish out is actually really, really strong, or at least it can get some very explosive draws. Little worried about BBD. Actually has a lot of sideboard hate for the matchup. Thankfully, no Stony Silences. I don't see in anyone's sideboard. That would be like the ultimate blowout because my mana base is kind of all artifacts, which would be very awkward. But yeah, the deck's really good, and I'm excited to show it off tonight.
Yeah, speaking of, actually, why don't we do this? Why don't we take a look at your deck list tonight for anybody who might be wondering, what does Synthesizer Affinity even mean? Because honestly, it just feels like you're putting your hand in and fishing out 2 words, right? So Saffron Olive, walk me through a couple of the things here. I mean, I'm seeing some pretty familiar cards, like the Mem Knights and the Frog Mites, but what's going on here? What have you cooked up for us this weekend, Chef?
So the key card in this deck is a new big score card from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, which is Simulacrum Synthesizer, which is scries when ETBs. It's a 3-mana artifact. The big deal is when an artifact with mana value 3 greater ETBs under your control, you get to make a construct that gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. So the goal of this deck is to hopefully stick Simulacrum on turn 2 or turn 3, and then Affinity has all these really expensive cards like Frogmite or Sojourner's Companion or Thought Monitor, which you can actually cast for like 0 mana or 1 mana, and they're all going to come along with this Karnstruck kicker and just make this huge board of artifacts really, really fast, and hopefully just kind of overwhelm your opponent with these massive artifact bodies. Plus, you're an Urza Saga deck, and that card's like really good, and you can tutor up a bunch of Silver Bullets, Pitching Needles, and Relics, and Shadow Spheres, and so forth. But that's the main plan. Stick the Synthesizer, and then just sling all your big artifacts and make a massive board and hope for the best.
Okay, yeah, speaking of Urza Saga, I do see a copy of Lava Spur Boots, which is, sort of a shifted Lightning Greaves, if you will. I don't know if you've got to play with that card, but that one seems very promising to tutor up off of the Saga.
It's really nice in the package. I think Shadow Sphere is still kind of the default target most of the time, but there's some situations where you can snag a Lava Spur Boots and like stick it on a construct and give it haste and just kill your opponent. So I think it's definitely good enough to be part of your like Urza Saga package in Modern, because it just adds a new element that we haven't really had before, which is slamming in with this huge hasty construct.
Awesome. Well, we already know what Domain Rhinos looks like through and through. I do want to sort of take a second to take a look at Nikachu's deck list as well, because, I mean, look, honestly, I get it. You're going to be switching from fish to fish on a fishly basis. So why don't you walk us through some of the nuances in this deck list and the complications in building not your first, not your second, but your third Merfolk deck list with the restrictions that we have for the season?
Yeah, so let's go over an incredibly busted interaction, and that is Moth Dust Changeling and Deeproot Pilgrimage. Now, Deeproot Pilgrimage was a card that was very popular within the Merfolk community. It looked like it had a lot of potential, but under most circumstances, didn't end up being very good. It's an enchantment that says, when one or more non-token Merfolk you control become tapped, you get a 1/1 blue Merfolk creature token with hexproof. I'm not gonna go over like it. Not gonna go over the nuances of this, but like you really need to be making at least 2 tokens a turn for this to actually feel good. Like it's powerful. 1 token a turn just doesn't cut it. But then we get to Moth Dust Changeling. Now this is a blue 1/1 shapeshifter with the Changeling ability, which means it's also a Merfolk. And it simply has tap an untapped creature you control. Moth Dust Changeling gains flying until end of turn. So what that essentially means is, as many Merfolk that I have on the battlefield, I get to make a 1/1 hexproof Merfolk token with Deeproot Pilgrimage. And it's absolutely bonkers. Like, especially with the Lords and Vidalian Hexcatcher, there are certain matchups, like, for example, like versus maybe like Creativity, where if you have Hexcatcher, Moth Dust Changeling, and maybe just those 2 and Deeproot Pilgrimage, the game's over. I'll just keep making 2 tokens a turn. You can't outpace it. I can also tap down lands with Dockhand and also make a token. I can tap Mutavault to make a token. So if you can make 2 or more tokens, and Changeling can do that, then this thing's great. The downside to Changeling is it's very weak to Wrenn and 6. It's very weak to Bowmasters. But fortunately for me, nobody's playing with those cards today, so my interaction gets to run free and wild. So, but the deal, now you also said, like, how can I make this 28 cards different? Well, I thought, well, you know what? Moth Dust Changeling is a Merfolk, but it's also a wizard, and that's why I'm including the Flame of Anor, the red-blue 1 generic instant. And if I have a wizard as I cast this spell, I can choose 2 modes instead of 1, which includes drawing 2 cards, destroying an artifact, or dealing 5 damage to a creature. It's funny enough, I am up against 2 artifact decks today. Perhaps that Flame of Anor is going to be an excellent 2-for-1 to recoup the card, like all the 2-for-1s they're going to be doing themselves in their favor. I'm hoping I'm going to neutralize the battlefield with this card.
We will see, because it looks like you made like a good metagame call. You know, I say no Bowmasters this week, no Wrenn and 6s, no little like pingers. Your little 1 toughness creatures might actually, you might put it off this week. You know what I mean? It's interesting. It's interesting to have all the, you know, there's a lot of red cards printed in Magic the Gathering. Spoilers. You've only chose to go for Flame of the North when you do have access to, you know, other potential red ones, but we'll see how that pans out. So the last question I've got to ask you, I ask every week, who do you not want to face now that you know what everybody is on? I'm going to start with you, Nikachu. Who do you not want to play this week? What deck do you want to try and dodge?
Well, I mean, I absolutely want to play against Braun-Duin because I actually have just a great footfall matchup in general. So I don't want to play against Luna and Seth, even though I sort of want to play against Seth because this is like the same pod as the first pod. I didn't get to play against Seth.
Okay.
So I have some like a sort of weird feel. I want to play against Seth, but I don't want to play against Seth sort of, you know, feeling around here.
Moving across to you, BBD. After now you know access to all these deck lists, who do you not want to be playing in that final to get into the top 8?
I'm gonna go with basically the same answer. It's the Merfolk deck. It's Nikachu. I'm worried that I'm gonna get run over there. Against the artifact decks, of course, that can also happen too. But I do have a lot more sideboard answers in terms of like Force of Vigor and stuff that will at least should hopefully give me a fighting chance.
Going down to you, Seth. I think I know the answer, but who do you want to try and dodge this week? Or is it? Do you want to dodge the mirror? Do you want to dodge the crazy sideboard, or do you want to dodge the fish?
So I think technically the right answer is probably BBD, just because I know his sideboard has a ton of Force of Vigors, which are going to be really good against my deck. But I'm a little nervous about the mirror. I don't know how either one of us wins the mirror. I feel like we just each make massive creatures and they bounce off each other. We sit there for like a half hour. So I don't know how that's going to go. So I'm kind of hoping to dodge that one too.
Spoilers, we're going to find that out because you are going to be our first matchup against Luna in a mirror match. So, make sure you get your drinks, ladies and gentlemen. Go to the toilet because that might end up being a long one. So on that one, we're going to say goodbye to everybody here. We'll see you all shortly in the booth. We're just going to move back down to just me and Anu, and we're going to talk through our